Hello and welcome to Tax Matters. I'm Chiamaka Ohawuchi. In the wake of the misguided so-called terror alerts issued by some Western countries, Nigeria successfully hosted top tax administrators from 33 African countries and 15 international partner agencies in Lagos under the auspices of the African Tax Administration Forum, ATAF. The 7th ATAF General Assembly was held between the 30th of October and the 4th of November 2022. Just under 1 month, Nigeria is again hosting tax administrators from 47 member countries of the Commonwealth, this time under the auspices of CATA, the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators. This is the 42nd annual CATA Technical Conference, and it is holding in Nigeria's federal capital city of Abuja from Monday the 28th of November to Thursday the 1st of December 2022. Host is the Federal Inland Revenue Service. The FRS chairman, Muhammad Nami, is the current president of Qatar, having taken over the mantle in the year 2021. Theme of the 42nd CATA Technical Conference is Tax Administration in the Digital Era. The Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators is an associated organization of the Commonwealth of Nations. Of course, you know that the Commonwealth of Nations, simply known as the Commonwealth, was made up at the onset of former colonies of the old British Empire. Other countries outside the fold have since joined, including Gabon and Togo, former French colonies, who became the 55th and the 56th members of the Commonwealth in June 2022. CATA was established in 1978 by a decision of the Commonwealth Finance Ministers. 47 Commonwealth countries are currently active members of CATA. The organization helps member countries develop effective tax systems that promote sustainable development and good governance, particularly amongst developing countries. In the morning of Monday, 28 November 2022, the Congress Hall of the Transcorp Hilton Hotel Abuja was filled to capacity for the opening ceremony. On hand to declare the technical conference open was Mr. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari. Opening formalities over, the 42nd CATA Annual Technical Conference went into full swing. Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, Fiscal Policy Partner and Africa Tax Lead at PwC, delivered the keynote address on the theme of the conference, Taxation in the Digital Era. We'll begin our story of the conference with just excerpts from Mr. Oyedele's paper.
We know that the world is changing fast, and it's not about to stop. Rather, it is set to accelerate. Today, we live in a vastly different world than what existed about a century ago, when the League of Nations set pretty much what we have today as the international rule for taxation. The world for which those rules were set no longer exists. Before, we use hands manually to knit the cloth that we wear. People wrote books in longhand and hired other people to write the books that they have written to make copies. Just imagine that today, how ridiculous it's even sounding. And we innovated, and today you can print 1 million copies in a matter of days, if not faster. The very first electromechanical binary programmable computer was invented in 1936. Motorola produced the first handheld mobile device, and you see it there on the left of the screen, and it's almost looking like a computer, right? With that phone, you cannot make a call for too long because you need to rest your hand. Today, we know the mobile phone can be as tiny. In fact, if not for the screen, you can have a mobile phone as tiny as a button. The guy who invented what would become the commercial internet in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee, So it's almost unimaginable that the internet is less than 35 years old, and it has transformed everything, and it is not about to stop. The mobile phone only started becoming smart in 1992. The phone wasn't smart until 1992. Today it is super smart. We have unprecedented digital transformation. And that graph you're looking at is the summary of the internet in 1 minute as of 2021. If you do it today, it would have increased. The amount of commercial activities is unbelievable. It is estimated that the digital economy is worth about 20 trillion US dollars. And over the past decade alone, it has grown almost 3 times the average GDP of the world economy. In other words, it's big, yet it's growing faster than the rest of the economy. It means only one thing: it will grow bigger. Tax administrators are having to deal with all of this disruption and transformation, but we seem to be playing catch up, and we are significantly reactive. Even the social media, that when it started, they thought it was a platform for teenagers who were idle and confused about life. We have now realized it's far more than that. It's transforming not only the economic sector, it's transforming politics and political systems. And people are making money on social media. The question is, how do we connect? The next question is, what else should we expect? And I just summarize it by saying everything will be disrupted, including tax processes. The next thing I want to talk to you about is tax digitalization as a force for greater good. So what I'm deciding to do here is to look at the 5 thematic areas that you have outlined for this conference, and then to think about what are those considerations you should deliberate upon, including whatever you already have on your list over the next couple of days. The first one is the informal economy. And I think the very critical point here is first and foremost for us to redefine what exactly is informal economy. Before the advent of technology, it used to be that informal economy was unregulated, they did not pay taxes, we didn't know what they were doing and where they were. But you would agree with me today, that's very difficult to find. Almost everyone that is doing anything that is important has a footprint on the internet. So it's not as difficult as it used to be. Maybe we need to redefine what's our informal economy so we can then focus. Then the other thing here is, I listen to tax administrators and policymakers a lot. And many times they tell you in developing countries like Africa, and even in developed countries, there's a lot of money to be made from the informal sector. So the engagement and the conversation is about how much money can we get from the informal sector. I think we need to rethink that approach. My view is that technology and digitalization gives us the opportunity to harvest data. You need data and information about the sector. Use that data to see how can we plan and support them. Beyond government having the legal powers to impose taxes, we need to earn the moral right to also do so. You only earn that when you support the informal economy, and when they thrive, you can now talk about taxation.
And these final thoughts.
And finally, in addition to the 5 thematic areas you have identified, number 1, how can we use digitalization to enhance the taxpayer experience? It should not be easier for me or for you to buy a pizza or to invest in the stock market than it is to pay your tax. We need data-driven decisions to improve administration and economic planning. Like when we had COVID, we needed to find out the poor people and we needed to help them. Many countries couldn't figure it out. In countries where they have a very sound digitalized tax administration, it was the easiest thing because the information you gave me over time, I can use that to tell whether you're poor or not. If you were dishonest with your tax returns, completely your problem. And I have your bank details, I can transfer the money. We can even track what you're doing with it. Then how about remote working, permanent establishment, and residency rule? When the rules were created, if you were physically in Abuja, Nigeria, working for an employer, you were working on economic activities in Nigeria, no other way to it. So you could create a permanent establishment. But today I can sit down in Abuja here, work for an American employer, and work on transactions exclusively in the US. Nothing to do with Nigeria. Why are we not reviewing the rules? Because now we have the tax rules coming in the way of business. We also need to think about resourcing for the tax administration, and here I'm saying that internet poverty cannot breed digital prosperity. So your employees, as a tax administrator, cannot be internet poor, and you tell us you are digitalizing tax administration. And there's a definition of what makes you internet poor: the quantity that you get of data, the quality and the speed of that data, and the affordability. And finally, we need to think about the tax burden and neutrality of digital tax versus traditional business models. There are countries where they will say, well, we are imposing digital tax services so that Google can pay tax, so that Amazon can pay tax. When you say that to your population, they may not figure it out. Maybe not all of them. But the reality is, who pays those DSTs? They're your people paying them, right? So let's be honest and sincere with their people. When you need those suppliers to pay the tax, they sign it appropriately. When you need your people to pay it, let it not be a discrimination between when you do traditional business model versus online. Online should not have any advantage, so also they should not have any disadvantages.
You see why you have to tune in for the follow-up story of the 42nd Annual Technical Conference of CATA. In the course of the 4-day event, participants would discuss how tax administration is impacted by the digital era, while also fashioning out strategies to respond to this era. The conference would also discuss how to bring more citizens of the Commonwealth, especially those in the informal economy, into the tax net. To achieve this, participants would discuss digitalization and the informal economy, digitalization and taxpayer information security, change management process in a digitalized tax administration, digitalization and the challenges of the digitalized economy, and digitalization and the harmonization of the tax system. The 42nd Annual Technical Conference of CATA had kicked off early in the morning with the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, standing in for President Muhammadu Buhari. In his opening remarks, Mr. Duncan Onduru, Executive Director of CATA, commended Nigeria for our contributions to CATA from inception.
That Nigeria is hosting this event soon after coming out of COVID-19 lockdown is not a surprise. Nigeria is a founder member of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators, having joined this organization in 1978. And over the years, Nigeria has actively participated in the affairs of the organization, including serving in the management committee of CATA for many years and currently holding the presidency of the organization. Thank you so much. Over the years, ladies and gentlemen, CATA membership has afforded our countries various opportunities. These include training and development of our tax administrators, benchmarking our tax policies and practices against other more developed Commonwealth tax administration, and having access to unfettered expertise advice from other tax jurisdictions at reduced or no cost.
The British Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Ben Llewellyn-Jones, was also in attendance.
Tax authorities have their own roles to play in ensuring that the opportunities and benefits of technology and digitalization are used to promote economic growth for all. Rapid developments in technology mean taxpayers are increasingly expecting digitalized tax services, while the volume and complexity of data flows increase considerably. There are therefore considerable opportunities for increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of tax collection needed to fund our public services, whilst reducing the complexity and administrative burden and expense for taxpayers. This includes considering how digitalisation can help us address common challenges such as compliance in the informal sector. Meanwhile, administrations are grappling with the skills and resource shortages. The shift to remote working, catalysed by the pandemic, prevents CATA members with opportunities to attract a wider pool of potential employees and to reduce costs. On the other hand, adapting to rapid technological changes is costly and risks being outpaced by new developments, and cybersecurity is an increasingly important consideration. This conference is therefore a valuable forum for sharing experiences, insights, best practice, and current challenges across a range of issues related to digitalisation.
Mr. John Swedlow is the chairman of CATA.
As this is our first technical conference in almost 3 years, the last being in Malaysia in 2019, I would like to convey in person my gratitude and appreciation to the CATA Management Committee for appointing Malaysia as the chairman of CATA for the 2021-2024 term during the MCM meeting on 12 November of 2021. I look forward to your continued support in making CATA stand tall among tax administrations as we work collectively to build this organization. I must express my heartiest appreciation to Mr. Muhammad Nami, Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service of Nigeria, and the Government of Nigeria for graciously accepting to host this year's conference in their beautiful country. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in giving a big round of applause to our host, Nigeria.
Next in line to receive the eminent delegates into our beautiful country are the Executive Chairman FRS and President of CATA, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation who stood in for President Muhammadu Buhari. Mr. Muhammad Nami, the Executive Chairman FRS, is celebrating 1 year in office as the President of CATA.
Today, I'm welcoming you in a dual capacity. First, as your host, and second, as your President. In recent times, there has been an upsurge of disruptive technology innovations in the business environment. These have triggered peculiar issues that tax authorities are grappling with. The business world is in a state of flux, consequently, and while the character of data and its management keeps changing. Consequently, tax administrators are under compulsion to align their mandates with the changes arising from technological advancements. In matching the pace of advancement in technology, tax administrators must remain bound by the laws, regulations, and codes that safeguard the sourcing, storage, processing, and management of data. In diverse ways, all members of CATA have to deal with the challenges that transformational technology has brought to the commercial space and stay ahead of the conversation.
The choice of Nigeria as a destination for these important international tax events is not by accident. Nigeria has remained in the forefront of the global efforts at finding equitable and lasting solutions to international tax issues. And let me just mention a few. First of all, the long-standing issues of imbalance in the allocation of taxing rights between source and resident jurisdictions. Secondly, the information asymmetry between multinational enterprises and tax authorities in developing countries. Third, the issue of base erosion and profit shifting. And fourth, the tax challenges of the digital economy. Since businesses are evolving from the physical presence to virtual place, tax administrations must also shift gear into the virtual realm. I'm hoping that this conference will discuss and recommend solutions to issues that include digitization of tax administration.
Mrs. Ahmed used the occasion of her speech to re-emphasize Nigeria's concern about the OECD inclusive framework.
The current international tax rules are skewed against source countries, particularly developing countries. Painfully, this anomaly in the current international tax rules is again influencing the two-pillar solution of the inclusive framework. We have observed, for instance, that Amount A, profit meant for market jurisdictions, is progressively being chipped away in favor of jurisdictions where multinational corporations are resident. Another example of an anomaly of the Amount A rules is the requirement for jurisdictions to surrender domestic tax disputes to mandatory and binding ruling of an arbitration panel composed and sitting outside of the legal system of the respective jurisdictions. President and Chairman and members of CATA, it is common knowledge that taxation is a matter of domestic law. Despite arising from the interpretation of domestic legislation, should only be resolved within those domestic legislations and by the people schooled to interpret them. The discussion to change the rules must start now. The world must rework the profit allocation rules used for transfer pricing and also the share of taxing rights by tax treaty partners. Nigeria is of the view that CATA is that organization that is best placed to push this dialogue. Countries must cast aside their differences or their individual self-interest to jointly develop workable, simple, and fair solutions. Nigeria is committed to working with other jurisdictions and international bodies to achieve a win-win solution. The Amount A proposal being developed by the inclusive framework is not achieving consensus because it is not founded on win-win principles. Only rules that promote a win-win solution can achieve the support of all.
We as a nation are delighted to have the privileged opportunity of hosting this conference comprising of tax administrations from 47 Commonwealth member states, tax organizations, tax authorities, tax institutes, policymakers, and other special guests around the world. As we all know, earlier this month, Nigeria hosted the 7th General Assembly of the African Tax Administrations Forum in Lagos. It is not coincidental that all these events are happening here in Nigeria now. Rather, we are passing the message that beyond participating in global discourse around issues of illicit financial flows, domestic resource mobilization, environmental taxes and taxation of the digital economy, among others, Nigeria is eager to provide a platform for frank and forthright discussions on issues that have critical implications for all and inevitably impact on the global economy. In addition, facilitating these discussions and being a hub for beneficial interactions of nations afford us the opportunity to emphasize the point that Nigeria is a safe and conducive destination for doing business, and that Nigeria has potentials for investment opportunities. While Nigeria, like most countries of the world, is not without its challenges, my message to you is this: come and do business in Nigeria, and I'm sure those who have already availed themselves of the vast opportunities will testify that the benefits far outweigh the challenges. Distinguished participants, special guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to officially declare this 42nd Technical Conference of the Commonwealth Association of Tax Administrators open.
The story of the 42nd Annual Technical Conference of CATA continues in subsequent episodes as we leave you with these parting shots.
The future is arriving faster than expected. We live in a digitalized world. Not only do we need to digitalize tax administration, we need a digitalized mindset.
We congratulate Nigeria for again attracting the creme de la creme of tax administrators from across the world. We promise you blow-by-blow accounts of what transpired at the 4-day event in subsequent episodes of the program. December is here, and we once again enjoin you to drive safely. Use seatbelts and don't drink when you drive. See you next week. Thank you for watching.